Having a Gas With is the podcast that talks to the great and the good of the creative industries, and in particular finds out what makes great music for film, for TV, for advertising, for dancing to, for cooking to, for f***ing to, and more. Today, I'm having a gas with Neil Williams. A keen music enthusiast in his spare time, Neil spearheads the film department in one of the largest and most prolific creative shops outside London, HAVAS Lynx. Neil, good to see you again.
Hi Greg, you alright?
I'm doing alright, and it's good to see you sort of, let's say, at home in the perfect IKEA kitchen, on display.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
No, yeah, it's good. How's work been for the last couple of weeks? So obviously you're the head of film at HAVAS Lynx, and I'm guessing, like most people I speak to in your position, so at the top of departments, there's no time off for lockdown.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's been quite intense over the last few weeks. Obviously, there was the initial push to get everybody out of the buildings and into home working, which we'd planned for and we'd made provisions for, and then all of a sudden, it was go and away we went. It was make sure the logistics worked, the workflows would work, and everybody got home and equipment set up, and it's going really, really well. But no let off on the work. It's been as busy as ever, which has been great. A lot more animations, obviously. There's not a lot of filming going on, but we're switching to animations. We're switching to virtual congresses. It's really, really exciting stuff at the moment.
No, that's good. I'm guessing I know a bit about HAVAS Lynx, and maybe not everyone who is watching will be as familiar with it. So do you just want to give us a brief overview as to what the agency does, and because it's different from most agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. We solely specialise in healthcare, and we work for numerous global clients in healthcare. But what we're doing is bringing quality advertising, creative standards into the healthcare arena. We've been doing it for a long time now, and raising the bar of healthcare communications essentially. So making television quality adverts, television quality campaigns, print campaigns as well, that are in the healthcare arena, which are not as widely seen clearly as commercial sort of retail products, but the quality is up there nevertheless.
One thing I was asking for, I suppose, was because I always like to know what people are preparing, what they're working on, especially obviously during lockdown season. But I'm guessing that because you're in the healthcare arena, it's not as straightforward to share what's going on or preparing for. I imagine it's all a very confidential arena.
Yeah, we do. We work in a heavily regulated arena, and so often we can only share our unbranded work. Anything that's branded, we have to keep behind closed doors. That's the regulation. That's what we all signed up to, and but at the moment, we've got fantastic clients, and they're doing amazing work. Especially in current situation, we're doing some great campaigns, and hopefully making a difference to patients' lives, to HCPs, doctors' lives. So it's a really rewarding field to be in.
Good, yeah. Well, the thing that I suppose is interesting to me, just about the creative industry in general, and I'm wondering if this is the same for you and if it's the same across the industry, is if there is a tendency at the moment to plan a load of shoots were obviously planned before March 23rd, and then no shooting. So is there like a load of stuff sort of in the stable waiting to go as soon as you can get a camera crew out?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got numerous projects, in the pre-production stages that, like you say, literally have just been put on hold, and we're waiting for guidance as it comes through. We've got the APA guidance through, and it's going to change the way we do filming for the short term. Hopefully things, touch wood, will resume back to normal service sooner or later. But absolutely, we've got quite a few projects. We've got shoots going on, across Europe that as soon as we can, safely enable them to happen, then we will do. Exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Because obviously I try not to read the news every day. And all day, every day at the moment, you see grim economic forecasts. But I feel like basically everyone I speak to is like just waiting on the other side of the door for it to be unlocked, and they're like, back out.
Absolutely. It's people still want good communications. People, okay, we're adapting the methodology of how we're doing that at the moment. I mean, this is a very good example of that. People still want good communication, still want messages to get out there, and we're here, we're waiting to do that in the best way that we can. I think I think what's happened brilliantly is for some of our larger, more creative campaigns, rather than watering them down and filming case studies or filming campaign pieces over Zoom, let's say, or trying to get people to self-record. Brilliantly, we're pushing, to let's just hold off and let's do them properly. It's not going to be long. Do you know what I mean? It feels like forever now, but if we look back on it, let's hopefully it will be, a 6-month blip, and we'd rather deliver the projects to the best that they can be. And if we have to wait to do that, then yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. We've also, accommodated and worked with, Zoom calls or Teams calls and done recordings of messages that need to get out because they've got a pressing timeline. So we work in all the arenas and make the best that they can be under the circumstances.
Great. Well, I'm convinced. Should we should we talk about some music? That's what I'm here for. Absolutely. Yeah. So I can't tell with you because we don't get as much of a chance to talk about it. How fundamental is music in your life generally before we go into the work?
I love it. I've loved music since I was, very early age, and very big influence on my teenage years. Still a big influence now. I mean, for me, music. I mean, if we do relate it to work, the music can make or break a film. It's setting the right tone, the right mood, the right pace. Really can make or break a film. That's where you guys, we partner with you guys quite a lot and get brilliant results every time. But yeah, I mean, on a personal note, yeah, it's very inspirational. You put something upbeat and funky on in the morning, and you put something a bit slower and a bit sort of more chilled at night and winds you down, glass of wine, all that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a big part of my life, I'd say.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you say it can make or break a film. I spoke to Rory Sutherland at Ogilvy a couple of weeks back, and he said they ran this experiment where they would get people to select their top 10 favourite moments in film to prove the point that about 70% of them would have really distinctive music.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it has featured in your production, your film production life as a rule, but what we're finding more and more is that people want to actually cut their film to the music, and obviously we're in the bespoke composition realm. There's no music at the start of the projects, so we're saying it should basically the track should be or it will be 120 BPM. So here's a click track, and you can cut your film to that click track, so it will always sync with the music.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can work both ways. If you find the perfect track before you begin the edit, and that it's going to work, it's absolutely set for that film's sort of feel, for that film's, the message it's trying to convey. Do you know what I mean? It's not too sad, it's not too happy. Whichever, if it hits the right note in terms of the film and the message that you're trying to convey, I think absolutely cut to it. But by the same accounts, a film shouldn't be edited to one track. You should be able to change the music or, create a bespoke track to go with it. Absolutely, because your edit should be locked and work. Whether the music, is there, you can cut to a click track. Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course we've all been in the situation where you get to the final day and it's sign off time, and one of the key decision makers at client side goes,
the music,
not having that track. Exactly.
We've all been there, I'm sure, and yeah, it happens. But I mean, what I take from that, I mean, years ago I used to get quite frustrated about that situation, and I think over the years experience has taught me that, like what I was saying there, music can make or break the film, and so if somebody's not feeling it, there's probably a reason for that. Do you know what I mean? And especially if it's a key stakeholder, they might well know the audience better. They may well know, where it's going to be shown better. And if they're not feeling it, or it's not quite gelling, then yeah, there may be something wrong. Maybe we do look at an alternative route. And so over the years, experience has taught me that by changing the track, sometimes you can get a better outcome. I think it's frustrating for editors a lot of the time, especially because they work for weeks, crafting the film to a said track. However, I would say more times than not, by changing the music, as long as you put as much effort and as much love into finding the next track, it can work just as well, if not better.
I really like that angle because it comes from a place of having respect for the client, and I've been in many situations where on the creative side, because as you know, I suppose I identify more as a creative than a producer, and you fall in love with your own creation. It's the best thing I've ever made. It should be getting Oscars, but it won't. And then when the client doesn't like it, we always go, well, they just don't know what they're talking about. They just base it on their own tastes. But that's a really good angle. It's like, look, they make the product, and they likely are so obsessed with making sure it sells that they know where it works.
They know their audience as well. That's especially in our field where it's a closed. It's normally a closed group of people, and that client could have been working with that closed group of people for multiple years. Now, just because we all think it's really, really cool and it's going to attract the masses, their audience demographic could be very, very different. Their audience demographic could be 50 to 70-year-olds for all, and so I mean, don't get me wrong, we do get that information beforehand, but they'll know what kind of people they're generally dealing with, and so I always think it's worth factoring in. Absolutely, experience has taught me that, and it does go a long way.
Let's talk about your music taste. Give me yeah. It's what most people wonder about but rarely get to hear. So I've got unfettered access. Give me a record that changed your life, if there is one. A single record.
Changed my life. I would say I grew up in a really good time as a teenager, I would say, which was sort of the early to late 90s. So from I'll give you my age. I was going to say without giving me age, I'm 40 now. So in 93, I was 13, 14, and so in about 95, being 15, 16. When the Brit Pop explosion happened, and we had all these like cool bands coming out of the northwest of England, London as well, obviously with Blur and Pulp from Pulp they were up north, weren't they?
Sheffield.
Jarvis. But yeah, no. As far as it goes, the Brit Pop era was was what sort of crafted my teenage years, and so I'd have to say, if for one album that stood out, it'd probably be the Charlatans, which was I think 95. Just an absolutely great album, and for me, when I look back at that era, that's the album that sort of defines that era for me. So
were you just like a fraction too young to be on the fault line of when the Stone Roses became the defining? Yeah, I mean, they were still the Second Coming had just been released. I think that was 94, 93, 94 maybe, and so that was a big album at the time, and obviously we were really into the earlier stuff, but yeah, I think you're right, I was just a bit young. I always remember thinking, I wish I was a few years older. I wish I was, 3, 4, 5 years older. I've got a cousin actually that's about 5 years older than me, and he was really into, he went and saw the Smiths and the Roses and, all those, the early sort of indie bands, as I would say, or the start of that scene. And, I mean, don't get me wrong though, as far as growing up in teenage years, that era was brilliant. 95 through 97, 98 was great. The whole economic revolution, political revolution, music revolution, style. I mean, the eyes of the world were focused on the UK at that time, and it was a great thing to be part of. It was great. We had Nebworth, we had Mile End for Blur, huge gigs that attracted massive numbers. So yeah, it was a great time. Were you ever at any of those landmark gigs?
Yeah, I went to both of those. I went to Nebworth and I went to Mile End. I think it was about 14, 15 when I went to Mile End. And I mean, how my parents let me go is unbeknown to me. But, there was, I think there were 8 lads on a bus from Bury, a coach from Bury down to London, and to go to this gig, and it was great. It was absolutely great. It was a full day event, and same with Nebworth. There was Main Road for Oasis as well. Great gigs, and to be there, to have your sort of formative years during that period for me was great. I don't know if it's been replicated since on a sort of a national level. I can't think of any other time, but then everyone says that, don't they?
Yeah, I do understand what you mean, though. We've all been discussing this for years about the fact that Nebworth, in particular Oasis, was maybe the last time that something like that was possible, when everyone had the same 4 media channels to go through, roughly like the same 2 TV stations, the same 2 radio stations. Yeah. And as you know, with Nebworth, was that 96?
I think so, yeah. It was probably around then, wasn't it? Yeah, 96, maybe 97.
Yeah, something like, what's the stats? Is it 1 in 20 of the population applied for tickets to Nebworth?
Yeah, I didn't know that stat, but yeah, it's. I remember, you had to ring up, didn't you, back then? You had to literally, well, you still do now, I suppose, for the big gigs, but yeah, you ring up and you went on hold, and, it was real celebration time when we got tickets. It was like, yeah, come on, we're going.
Yeah, the event of a lifetime, and I don't know how it felt to be there at the time. I won't depress you by telling you how old I was when Nebworth happened, but I kind of get the impression that it felt like the 80s. Obviously you had Joy Division, and what were they roughly? I should know because I'm a music guy, about 82, something like that, 79, and it was poor kids from the industrial north, starting to make some noise, because obviously the Smiths and that, it's like poppy like the Beatles, but the Beatles were, you can't compare, the biggest thing ever, the whole of the London machine and the US music system just pushing them to the very top. This is when it felt like punk had happened, so it's like, normal people can make records. So you got the Smiths, and you get the sort of the indie and the post-punk momentum going through the 80s, and it feels like it all built up to Oasis when it was like.
Yeah, I think I think the media had a large part to play on that. With when they put out there was the 2 singles that went head to head, and when you look back, I mean, I'm sure the Gallagher brothers and Dave Narbonne admit that they weren't the best tracks to go up against each other. It was
you're referring to Roll With It versus Country House.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't particularly great tracks, but that was like the biggest thing ever in the media at the time, wasn't it? And I think, like you say, it had all been building up to that point, I would say. But there was a lot more and better music that came before it, and to a certain degree after it as well. There were. I mean, I know Oasis went on a bit of a decline after their heyday, as it were. But Blur still turned out some good albums. There was. I forget the name of the album after that, but it had Tender on, do you remember? And
of course, yeah.
And all that. That was a really good album. And then there were more bands after that, weren't there? There was, that went into the Kaiser Chiefs and the Killers, and the, and they all became really, really big, big bands. So yeah, I just think I got lucky with the years I got as a teenager, and I think. I mean, I'd love to have been at Spike Island. That was a few years, I was a bit too young for that. That's what started off the big, the huge sort of festival event kind of gigs for that, that genre. And I would have loved to have been there. I'm sure it was a great day out.
Well, that was really thrown together, wasn't it? Have you seen the Shane Meadows film, Made of Stone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I love that film because the way what Mark Kermode said about it is that there's no muckraking. This is an absolute love letter to Shane's favourite band.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we were, I went to the gig. When was it? That was about 2 years ago at Heaton Park.
Are you kidding me? 2 years ago, it was 2012.
Was it really? Okay.
The last one was 4 years ago. I was there.
Really?
Yeah. Stadium.
Wow. I went to the Heaton Park gigs, and it was great because you just looked around the whole of. I remember going into a pub in Prestwich, and there were guys that I'd seen 15, 20 years earlier in clubs in the Hacienda in 42nd Street around town, and they hadn't seen them literally in like 15 odd years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all those indie kids were now just a bit larger and a bit bolder, and hanging out at all these pubs in Prestwich, getting ready to go and see the Roses again. It was brilliant.
Flipping it. What does it feel like getting to that point? What kind of feeling does it bring up where you see everyone that you used to know, and in your head they were still 20?
Oh yeah. It was. Do you know what? It was great. It was really, really good because we were. It was like reliving a day of that youth again. It was brilliant. We went on a full day. I mean, everyone was drinking from 11 o'clock in the morning. It was great. It was an absolute blast of a day. And I mean, to be honest, if you've ever seen the Roses live, I don't know if you have, but I mean, Ian Brown literally can't sing for toffee when he's live. But what a great performer, and what a great it was a great gig. Vocals. It was very much a studio artist, isn't he, Ian Brown?
Yes, absolutely. But I really, my heart melts a little bit, when I saw all the dads taking their 12 or to 16-year-old kids, and it's I can't think of the right way to put it, but it's something like there's a cynical slant usually put on nostalgia, but it looked like a day when ordinarily kind of working people, or I don't know how to put it. It just seemed like it was a celebration, and it was a day full of positive feeling.
Do you know what? The really brilliant thing for me was I think they'd released 2 new singles, and looking back on them, they were okay, but they weren't great at all. But they didn't go too far with that. Do you know what I mean? They recognised that actually, okay, we've got some new material. There's an opportunity here to get back together. Let's do a big gig. I'm sure it was very money orientated as well. But for us as fans and everyone that was there, it was a chance to just hear all the tunes that you knew. With a couple of the new ones thrown in, but essentially it was a celebration of looking back at the at the past, and that they could still do it. And I think that was the whole feeling of the whole crowd and the band is we can still do this. And that was great.
I think that's what occurred to me earlier was, I think with the Roses, and this really happens with Morrissey, is I think those 2 bands in particular, and maybe there's some others that you can think of, that bring ordinarily emotionally reserved blokes to their knees with emotionality.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, there's. I mean, I'm trying to think of others. It was the Charlatans for me. Yeah. I mean, Timber's still doing stuff now. I saw a recent clip on YouTube where he was performing with, I think it was the Halle Orchestra, and it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The Timbers and Charlatans continued to make albums, right the way through the 2000s, 2010s, never quite as successful. But then, times moved on. The whole, everything's moved on, and so people need new music. They need new, you can't always hark back. It's nice to hark back for a day, but music progresses. There's so many amazing new artists out there now, and it's great to listen to new music because constantly. I mean, I set myself a challenge of listening to at least one album a month that's new, that I can get into, and sometimes they're a hit, sometimes they're a miss for me, but I do like to make sure that I invest in an album. And I think Spotify's changed that. I think the whole Apple Music thing has changed the way we listen to music, and not necessarily. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got its pluses. We've got the Sonos behind me there. You can shout out whatever tracks you want to listen to, and it'll play them for you. It's great. But on the flip side of that is nobody listens to albums anymore. Nobody listens to an album from track 1 to track 10 to track 12 or whatever it is. In the way that an album is crafted for me has always been it's a journey that they take you on, the artist takes you on, and I love that. And I think to not play it at least once in its entirety is not doing the album any justice. So I do try and do that.
No, you're absolutely right. I found that I was never in my life listening to albums all the way through until I got into vinyl, and I sense that you are a vinyl kind of guy.
I'm recently converted back to vinyl. Lockdowns prompted it very much so, because yeah, I mean, I had a vinyl player up until about 2000, and I got rid of the hi-fi system, as it were, and I put all the vinyl up in the loft, and it stayed in the loft for 20 years. And I recently sort of invested in a nice new Stanton, a direct drive proper turntable. But now you can hook it up to the Sonos, and it's great. You can have the vinyl playing throughout the house. It's absolutely brilliant.
I don't actually do that. How do you do that?
So you get a Sonos bridge, or there's various other makes available out there. But you buy a Sonos bridge, and is it called the bridge? No, it's called the Connect. Sorry, Sonos Connect, and you hook that up into the back of the amp, and then when you play your record, it plays it out through Sonos. Send it to any of the Sonos speakers you've got in your house. Just great. But yeah, I mean, going back to playing, the albums, vinyl, you've got no choice really, or you've got limited choice. You put it on and it plays the album. It's great. You get to listen to the full thing. And in terms of, the way it sounds, I mean, vinyl, you just can't replicate that sound. There's certain albums that you can put on, and it's the crackles and the it's just brilliant. So yeah, very much back into my vinyl now.
Yeah, I had the privilege of digging out my dad's collection when I was first getting into vinyl. I think a lot of people my age really had that advantage, because a load of us, people my age, had parents who had hopefully preserved their old collection. And so yeah, I was able to dig through and go, Fleetwood Mac rumours, yes. Marvin Gaye, what's going on? Yes.
Thank you very much.
Duran, no. Never. No, don't worry. My dad did not own a Duran vinyl. But yeah, and so I put them on, like, okay, it's going to be a bit, crap and crackly, but whatever. And then it comes on, it's like, this sounds perfect. How is it preserved?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it adds to it, doesn't it? The crackles and the, that sort of. It's just a lovely, lovely sound. I mean, I've got Rolling Stones albums. I think just sound the best through vinyl.
Yes.
And it's. I mean, the intro to "Gimme Shelter" or it's just an amazing thing to listen to. And yeah, I mean, obviously, it still sounds good through the digital formats. I'm sure they work very, very hard to ensure that. But in terms of authentic sound, I think vinyl, you really can't whip it.
Well, it does feel like, I don't know much about digital reproduction, because I'm not a computer guy, I'm not a technician. Yeah. But I do get the impression there's something about vinyl, especially legacy vinyl, the original stuff, that's basically gone from master tape onto vinyl master and straight across. It's a complete lossless transfer, and you're listening to a very accurate reproduction of what was done in the studio.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure, like I say, compression adds a lot to the loss of sound when you're streaming music. I mean, there's actually settings in the Sonos app or the Apple Music app. There's quite a few settings where actually, if you dig into them, you can turn off. You can select uncompressed, which is bound to give you a better sound. And I think when people are streaming things via 4G or whatever through the mobile and onto some headphones, you're bound to lose quality. Of course you are, because it'll give you the narrowest, the smallest file size that they can send you. So you can send it to your mobile or whatever, and so yeah, you're bound to lose quality. And like you say, going from the master tape to a pressed vinyl and then playing it, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, I always feel like with the compression thing, this happens in video as well. Obviously, I don't do any like rendering a video or anything, but is that a big challenge when you're running a film department and you've got all this huge stuff and you're like, right, we have to compress this down to a YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time. I mean, we can go out and shoot something in 8K format, and then we can edit it right the way through, but then ultimately it might end up online in an embedded website, and the maximum file size you can have is 50 meg or something, and we've got terabytes and terabytes of footage there, that we've whittled that down. So we always, aim to deliver the best quality output as we can. So we always master at whatever format that is, whether it be 4K, whether it be, HD. We always keep that because it's future-proofing it, essentially. At some point, everyone, will catch up. I mean, most people, I would say, nowadays probably have a 4K TV. The issue is what do they watch on that 4K TV? There's no 4K BBC yet. There's no 4K, so you're limited to your options. You can watch Netflix at 4K, but only if you pay the top subscription, which a lot of people don't. But then everything's future-proofed. So if you've shot it at 4K, you've edited it at 4K, you've mastered it at 4K. Okay, it might end up at 720p on an internal website or an externally facing website, but you've always got the 4K master to fall back on.
I mean, this is kind of what we were saying about the vinyl. It's like, don't make everything subject to the constraints of the day, because if you were making so there's two examples I can think of, one in music, one in film. But the music is obviously just the vinyl itself. It's like, well, let's record it at very low quality because nothing can reproduce these frequencies. But 30 years later, we're so grateful that they did make it like full spec.
I mean, the great. I remember going to in the broadcast industry. There's a big conference that happens every year called IBC. It's in Amsterdam every September. And I remember going years and years and years ago. And Harry, who make cameras and lighting for film equipment, they were showcasing their digital 35mm film scanner, essentially. So what it does is it takes like the reel-to-reel tapes you've got behind you. It takes the film that was originally shot, and it takes it frame by frame, and it scans it in digitally, and I mean it does it at a rate of knots. But I remember thinking, this is brilliant, because now we're going to get the absolute full quality digitally, and that's where you got these digitally remastered kind of versions of things, and it which that's technology helping, that's technology working hand in hand with with a craft, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know where you were, let's say, about 10 or 12 years ago when Blu-ray was the thing.
Yeah.
I got into that because I mean I was stupidly young, and I was like 18 or something. I was like, oh, let's just save all my part-time job money for Blu-rays, now completely obsolete. But I watched 2001 A Space Odyssey for the first time on Blu-ray, and I was like, thank God they shot this in 70mm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, Blu-ray as a format was great. It was significantly better than DVD. But at the time, nobody knew the streaming revolution was happening. Going to come.
Yeah.
And nobody knew the quality that you could get through streaming at the time, which sounds mad now, but at the time everything was on a physical format. All your Christmas presents were DVDs or CDs. It's just all gone now. It's completely a digital streaming, whether that be music or film. Everything's streamed now, which is great and convenient until it comes to Christmas when you don't know what to buy.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
I mean, the ease of it and the immediacy of it is great. I mean, there's you can put programs up straight away. It's albums are released straight. You're not waiting for X amount of thousand copies to be pressed. You can be uploading online onto a streaming service immediately. It's great. Yeah,
it's very. I mean that I think the music industry is still trying to realign itself after it was built on a business model that meant we have to invest. What do we have to invest in you? 30 grand for studio time in for full production of the asset, and then we have to invest 50 grand to get all the things sold, so we're already 80 grand in things pressed, so we're 80 grand in the hole. Then we need to sell X many copies.
I mean, it's the world has changed, and I know a lot of artists now get a lot of the revenue from gigs, don't they? I mean, ticket prices went through the roof, didn't they? You used to be able to go and see a band for what, 10, 15 quid, and you're now looking at 70 to 100 for some gigs, aren't you? I mean, but that's the way they make a lot of the revenue these days, and which I still think to see a live gig is brilliant, and so I think it's just you just have to accept that the world has changed and that ticket prices have gone up, and please go and see bands still. It's it's still a great thing to do.
Yeah, I get the impression, or what occurs to me when people are saying why is the gig so expensive? Why is it 75, 80 quid? And I sympathise, but then you also think the money was going to be replaced somewhere, and when did you last buy music?
Yeah, exactly. When how much do you think they're getting from Spotify a month? It's not as much as if you'd have bought their CD. You're essentially buying your CD and your ticket, aren't you, at the same time, on top of the D. But it's the way of the world today, isn't it? And I think we need to fight hard to keep those live gigs going, and to keep because otherwise there's no point. There's no we're just going to lose artists. We're going to lose upcoming artists because there's not any money to be made, and I think that would be a travesty, because how much would our culture suffer if musicians just decided to go, you know what, it's not worth it, I'll go and do something else, and it'd be an absolute travesty.
Yeah, well, they all have to do what I ended up having to do, which is work for advertisers. So you're only going to see new music in adverts in 10 years. That's the rule.
Yeah, that's hopefully the music industry. I mean, it has adapted, hasn't it? Everyone's looked to the model that it was Napster, wasn't it, that started the whole thing, and then everyone's looked to adapt. I mean, there's the classic story of Blockbuster were offered to buy Netflix at an early point, weren't they? And they were like, it's never going to work. Clearly proven wrong. The same. I should imagine with a lot of the record companies when Napster went digital, I don't think anybody foresaw how huge a shift in dynamics that would be, and it has, and I think it's brilliant. I think now, if anything, it's going to be which service do you buy? Do you go Amazon? Do you go Spotify? Do you go Apple Music? Do you go Deezer? There's so many out there, and which one do you choose and why do you choose? That's the next phase, isn't it? And how many are there going to be? Yeah.
I've had. I don't know about the music streaming, because you can sense that's a new. It's a newly forming battle. Clash of very aggressive titans. I just think the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe 5. Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube and Amazon are just going to scrap like there's no tomorrow. Because I don't know if you saw that Spotify just bought Joe Rogan's podcast for $100 million.
I saw that, yeah. I did see that in the news. That's crazy money, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah. And not only is the money a significant factor, what they bought is his entire archive of assets and the rights to publish the video. Ergo, I think Joe Rogan is one of the first YouTubers, let's say, because this stuff goes on YouTube and gets millions and millions of views within hours, and it's not going to be on YouTube anymore. Spotify have stolen a video asset from YouTube.
Yeah, so it's like it's like ITV stealing a BBC show, isn't it? Essentially, it's the same sort of thing. You now have to watch it on a different format. But that will be it. It'll be the artists, hopefully, that dictate where you go to, which service you use. I remember, didn't Amazon Prime's subscriptions skyrocketed, didn't they, when they bought Top Gear? Essentially, they bought, they launched the Top Gear thing. It's about getting the right talent and the right, the right programs. I mean, Netflix have got it absolutely sewn up at the moment. With the documentaries, with the film releases. I mean, they're doing amazing work, and I think that's going to be the challenges. I mean, Apple have launched their Apple TV programming service, and that they've got to catch Netflix. They've got to if they're going to be a contender, they've either got to catch them quick, or I think it will just drop off. And interesting to see how that plays out.
I've had a feeling that I've had this theory, which is what idiots like me say when I thought something without validation. That at some point soon you're going to arrive at a point where it's like, all right, I can have BritBox for £10 a month, I can have Netflix for £10 a month, I can have Amazon, and then you start spiraling Disney Plus, and I've got a suspicion that some smart, Steve Jobs-esque type person is going to go, look, let's just fold them all into one and call it a TV license.
Do you know what would be even cleverer though? Is in theory you could buy multiple licenses, package them all as one, and then for every one license you had, 4 people are not going to watch it at the same time, let's say, and you could work out some kind of algorithm to slot people onto the right license given when other people are not watching. Cost saving there, and I'm sure somebody a lot more clever than me will work out how to do that. But you're totally right. I mean, the BritBox thing, I just really didn't get that. I mean, you're essentially paying again for free content. I just didn't get that. But
do you think it maybe is like an indicator of like it's the canary in the mine? It's like BBC and ITV saying this is gonna go. So
yeah, possibly. I mean, the BBC have still got the license fee, revenue, but I know that doesn't make up anywhere near what they need for programming. It's there's a lot of investment goes on behind the scenes in the programming. So, I hope that, doesn't get damaged. But I mean, if you think about it, I don't know I can only speak from personal experience and, friends and colleagues' experience. But I mean, the amount of people that watch live TV anymore, it's narrowing massively, isn't it? When was the last time, you saw an advert in real time without being able to fast forward it or, skip it or, it's dwindling, and that will change advertising, well, certainly television advertising, because the demand, I mean, obviously you've got the YouTube advertising and whatnot, but then when you talk about the streaming services, there's no advertising on Netflix, there's no, do Amazon Prime? I think Amazon Prime. No, actually, they just do internal advertising, don't they? So they advertise their own programming or films coming up. But it's a changing market for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think will remain the case, and it might not, because whose predictions are ever true, but is that brands and people who make consumer goods will still need space to tell people about those goods, and will still make an offer to the people who have all the eyeballs. I don't think that Netflix will be a stark paywall forever. I think you'll be able to watch Netflix with adverts at some point. I don't know what form that'll take. I don't think it'll be as easy as that, but it'll be something.
Oh, well, I'm sure they'll do something where it'll be a nominal fee to watch it with adverts and a more expensive fee to watch it without them, and let the user decide maybe a path they might want to go down. But the revenue that's there to be made from advertising must be hard for them to resist. Absolutely. But then, you look at, didn't Netflix recently reach the same share price as, I think, Shell Oil or something like that? It was like, an absolutely ridiculous amount of money they're making from subscriptions, which, obviously lockdowns projected that into a whole new category. But everybody does talk about what have you watched on Netflix, what have you watched on Amazon, especially during this current lockdown.
Yeah, and you take a lesson from that you could take back to the brands and the people for whom we're making the advertising content, which is, why do we watch Netflix? Well, you and I have already talked about this. It's because they make the best stuff. It's because the Defiant ones was amazing. It's because, what's it called, the Michael Jordan one?
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance. Because everyone says that's the best thing they've ever seen. You have to make great content.
So for me, it's not as good as the Defiant ones. That was a standout. That's probably one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
Yes.
I mean, The Last Dance is very, very good, and it's very, very well made, and it gives you a whole, new appreciation of Michael Jordan and that Bulls team. I mean, the Defiant ones, for anyone who's watching this and not seen it, please go and watch it. Yeah. But the Defiant ones is the story of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, who grew up on opposite coasts of America, and one was an Italian guy from Brooklyn, and the other grew up in the Compton, wasn't it?
Compton, yeah.
And, the story of how their two lives progressed, and the turns that they took throughout the music business, and then ultimately came together further down the line to form Beats Music, and then the Apple sellout, and it was just an amazing roller coaster of story that was brilliantly told. It flipped from one to the other, didn't it, seamlessly as you went through the years, and there was such different stories, but then ultimately weaved into one. It was brilliant.
It's a real modern day rags to riches story as well, because those guys both started dirt poor, and again in very different communities, and came together to make the
first $1 billion deal, I think, wasn't it?
Dre was the first billionaire in hip hop, and I think the guys got bought out for like $3 billion by the biggest tech company in the world. From working on the docks, from loading trucks.
Yeah, that was it. It was from Hell's Kitchen, wasn't he, Jimmy Iovine? But, I mean, the story of who the Jimmy Iovine story on its own was amazing. Working with John Lennon, and then it was Stevie Nicks, and there was Tom Petty and all those, where it was like right the way through the 70s and through the 80s and whatnot, Fleetwood Mac, and then you've got the NWA story on the other side of the coast.
Amazing.
That's I'm sure everyone's seen the Straight Outta Compton film. that was an amazing story as well. Of like you say, rags to riches. And yeah, you put them two together, and it was like, whoa, this is an amazing doco.
And for Dre to just be like, as well as everything, I also produced the biggest rapper ever. I don't know if you've heard of Eminem.
Yeah, have you met Eminem and Snoop? And it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, such both incredibly talented guys, and masters of what they do. Who could blame them for, they came up with a great business idea there that ultimately made them more money than both the music ventures put together. And fair play. It takes character and it takes, intelligence to do that, and fair play.
And so Netflix have packaged all that up and given us a something that's going to hold our attention, and we're talking about it with this amount of enthusiasm. This is why people go to Netflix. And I have a feeling that I don't want to say anything obvious that everyone would already say as in our industry, but there's a kind of assumption that I feel like there's an axiom baked into advertising that people don't really want to see it and they have to be forced to see it. So when we get music briefs, a lot of it is if it's a sync, a sync thing where we have to go and search for an existing track, they say, can you make sure it's attention grabbing? Because otherwise people won't look at it. We have to make advertising that people will be happy to see, even if they don't want the thing they're being sold. So, and it won't make sense. If it's a great idea, it doesn't have to make sense. I always say, imagine going to that pitch and you're like, all right, so it's a gorilla in a rehearsal room playing Phil Collins.
Yeah.
This is Cadbury's. How does that sell the product? Just go with me on this.
Go with it, yeah. No, a great idea. I mean, we do quite a lot of work where, HAVAS Lynx as a company has taken creative directors from all around the different agencies and pulled them into healthcare, because, and it's a hard sell, let's be fair. If you're working at McKinsey, you're working at, JWT, you're working, BGL, it's, you're taking them out of a retail environment and bringing them into healthcare. The difference is we're doing healthcare to a creative standard that, meets advertising standard. And I think that's where we get some amazing campaigns, campaign ideas through, and they are a hard sell to a lot of our clients. That you're taking traditionally quite reserved, therapy areas, and you're injecting this creativity, and and if the clients, brilliantly, we've got an amazing array of clients who have belief in us, belief enough to go with us in pitches, and the results speak for themselves. We're getting amazing feedback about these campaigns, and really actually changing people's lives, which is great.
Well, that is what I like to hear. People going to work and being satisfied with their day's graft. So
yeah.
Go on, you were saying.
Don't get me wrong, it's hard work. It's a great company to work for. There's a great culture in HAVAS Lynx, but it's work hard and play hard. It's there's a lot of hours go in. There's a lot of hard work goes into creating some amazing pieces, but ultimately it's also the rewards are there. We have a great culture. There's 440 people now, and there's a great array of people, from medical writers to film team to creatives to copywriters, designers, art workers, the full the full spectrum, and to have so many talented people within one business is really refreshing.
Well, sounds good to me. And so I look forward to basically the time when everyone can actually get back to the office again, because I imagine there's a big social element missing from a team like that.
Yeah, it is. As an example, we had one of my guys was getting married, or supposed to be getting married today.
Oh man!
And so yesterday we set up a Zoom call, and we all put our suits and ties, and the dresses and the fascinators were on, and we did you can change your background to a wedding background, and we had a faux wedding Zoom call for him, and it was great. Everyone had a glass of champagne in the hand, and it was nice. So you've got to do what you've got to do to kind of make the best of this situation, and people are coming up with really creative ideas to do that. But ultimately, I think everyone is missing that that day-to-day social interaction of being around other people, and but you've got to put safety first. There's no two ways about it. You've got to put safety first. And, if it's another 6 months before we can get back into the office normally, then it's another 6 months. And I think, we've just got to be mindful of that. Everything's working as it is. I think it will change the way, businesses as a whole work going forward. I think, there are certain benefits to being able to work remotely, but there are, like you mentioned, there are certain downfalls. And I think as long as we find a nice balance between those, I think that's where most businesses will land. Is that there will be more flexible working as a result of this. But I think the office-based culture still needs to be preserved. I think it's people are missing each other.
Yeah. Well, on the note of the workday, you've given me a good best part of an hour there. So what I'm going to do is, this is basically Steve edits this. Steve, you can cut here because I'm just going to do a bit of talking.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's been really, really good fun. Enjoyed it a lot. I was gone extremely quickly. So thank you very much for having me on this.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, and I look forward to the much discussed return to normal. I hate to say the new normal, so I won't say it. And we'll see you when the curtain rises.
Take care. Thanks a lot, Greg. Bye.
Cheers, man.